It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show.
Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 379. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Is that an important number?
I don't think so. Kodra?
They gave double jump to the horse?
Tam?
10 out of 10. Game of the year.
Phelan.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I just don't. Something about rings. They're old rings. I don't know.
Don't ask me. I've been playing old games that I missed from last year. And earlier.
Same. I'm focused on Guild Wars 2 and Ghost of Tsushima right now because I need to get my legendary necklace before End of Dragons. I've got I think less than 48 hours at this point.
So that might not happen?
I don't have a lot left to do.
All right.
I've got the last 2 chapters of Icebrood Saga to run through the instances of again, and then
Is it a timed thing?
No.
Okay.
It's just once End of Dragons is out, there's going to be all this story that I want to focus on. So I'll be doing that.
Got it.
I'm just saying, some of us are not actually caught up, so you might be able to
Yeah.
grab some return achievement just by helping other people get caught up.
I mean, yeah, but nobody's really caught up to Icebrood Saga at this point, and that's all
I
I've
am.
got left.
I mean, I am most of the way through Icebrood Saga.
Okay.
So we have a handful of topics that I am not sure what are new and what are old, because some of them have bounced a couple times. But I think it was Kodra who was most recently playing Chicory.
I was very recently playing Chicory. I actually beat Chicory this week. I saw credits, and that is a game that I understand why it was a game of the year. And I got into it a little bit, and then it kind of fell off because I didn't necessarily scan what type of game it is. But it's very much like a Zelda-style puzzler game broken up with moments of an intense, interesting twin-stick shooter, music extravaganza boss fight.
That's a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, you are moving around to avoid attacks while also moving a paintbrush around to paint an enemy. It's a lot of things. The boss fights are pretty challenging, actually. Although there are options to give yourself more hits before it resets a phase.
Or basically even unlimited if you want.
I was even to unlimited.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize I was dying the first time I played through a boss fight because it's so quick to get you back into the action. It just does a quick fade to white, and then the fight starts back rewound to the point that you last checkpointed at. I was very confused because I did not read it as dying, but it is because it sets you back in progress. And it matters because everything in the game is all of the fights are timed around the songs that are playing in the background, which becomes a lot more apparent on boss fights 2 and 3, where it becomes really cool. Which Lena Raine did the music for this game, also the composer for Celeste, and these songs are fantastic. All of the boss fight songs are great. And the story is really cute and affecting and important. It's a conversation on art.
Among other things.
Amongst other things. Art and mental health. We got to sit down and have a good conversation with our son about how some of the characters we're going through are things that he should feel comfortable talking to us about. If he ever feels he's not able to talk to us about how he's worried about failing, or if he feels people are putting too much pressure on him.
That's
how
a good thing to tell him.
Yeah, and how it's good to be comfortable talking about your feelings and talking to friends and parents if you're feeling bad.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of indie games the past few years have been something and mental health. I wonder why that could possibly be.
Well, and my other comment was I feel like it's there. a lot of indie games for the past couple months are something in mental health and capitalism is a trash fire.
Mm.
I'm going to point out that this game was seen at PAX and started in the before times.
I mean,
It-
a
the
lot of these
before-
games that are something plus mental health are from the before times. Night in the Woods was way before
That's true.
Well-
all of this garbage started.
And there's a lot of games that got recontextualized once we started going through all this stuff, because like
That
Death
too.
Stranding for me was very much a pandemic game and told a pandemic story, but like it was totally not.
My favorite, and this is a very, very minor spoiler. The game starts by asking you what your favorite food is, and that's the name of your character, because every character in this game is named after food, which makes it really funny when it's time for you to go eat food.
Yes, because they can't call any food any actual food name because you might have named your character that.
And in fact, one of the things you go get is some pizza, and the default character name is Pizza.
I think there are several default character names now. If you say, I don't know, it just gives you a random food. But pizza was the original default.
It also has mini games in which it asks you to like draw a thing in the game, and then that art is used elsewhere. And all of these are amazing. Like then you get to see your art out in the world. It also had one of my favorite like very artist moments where I drew something for someone and they immediately were like, "Oh, I love it so much. Here, let me draw you." And they draw a vastly superior product. And I'm like, "Oh, I feel terrible. Their art is so much better than mine. Oh, wait, I can't feel terrible. That's what the whole point of this game is."
Wow, that's the thing for sure. Wow.
It's worth noting that character's reaction is identical to what your reaction likely is to this experience.
Yeah, it's a really good game.
It definitely sounds really fun. I have put it on my list, so I hope to get to it soon because it just definitely looks like my jam.
Yeah.
It's very good.
So the next topic poses the question, how much complexity is too much?
Yes. So, because of the Xenoblade 3 announcement, I went back and replayed Xenoblade 2, which was much, much, much easier the second time around. This game has too many systems. And consider that it's me saying this, first of all.
Mhm.
Combat in Xenoblade 2 involves auto-attacking to build up your driver arts, like your character attacks that you can do, to build up your blade specials, which are special attacks that your companions can do. The arguably most important thing ever is to cancel auto-attacks with your arts so you build up special faster. And while the game does tell you this way before you have specials or any reason to do it, it does not ever later say this is the most important thing you could be doing.
Yeah.
Like, when you say cancel, like
I mean,
animation cancel?
press the button. I mean, yes, but just press the button as your attack hits.
Oh, interesting.
But like, all the blades have these rather complicated skill grids that you need to do various things to make them better. Some of them have better skills than others. They're definitely not all created equal, and they're drawn in a sort of gacha system, so it's hard to know that. Thankfully, they give you like two of the best ones, just straight out without randomness now, so that's nice. But it's like there is a world of complexity hiding behind chaining your thing into a different thing and then into either a super level 4 special or a chain attack that goes like 5 rounds, or all of this is behind the basic idea of hit your thing as your attack connects, so you start building up the first basic step of this thing. The other thing is consumables are important, and consumables that give you your attacks faster are probably the most important.
So with this level of complexity, how required is this level of complexity?
More than I would want.
Okay, because like
you don't have to go
Pokemon-
into all of the systems, but you need to have understand. There's the basic building block that I never got when I played this game the first time, is the thing. Because I was focused on the systems behind it, trying to make the most of chain attacks and blade combos and orbs and all that other stuff. And all that obscures the basic how do you do damage part of the combat system.
which is making sure you're building special faster by canceling auto attacks at the right time.
Yep.
It's interesting because like when you say something like this, there are very like Pokemon is the example I kind of mentioned. Pokemon is a fiendishly complex game. You don't need to know about any of it.
Yep, that is basically the exact antithesis of this.
Yeah, because you also needed to focus on like various elemental stuff and having the right combos to go further into your potential damage tree too, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I was always frustrated before how I couldn't ever build those things fast enough.
Right, right. And it was the auto attack or the canceling.
Is the canceling?
Yeah, because I remember they told you a lot of stuff when it was just your one character and the one blade, like near the beginning of the game. And then once you, like you were saying, once you finally got more stuff, you like had forgotten all of that or it didn't make any sense. So it didn't make any sense further on either.
The cancel thing they tell you during the tutorial at the very beginning of the game before you even have a blade.
Oh,
So
okay,
you can't
that's
know
right.
about how important it actually is.
Cool.
That's a poor choice.
And I think the game maybe needed to strip that down a bit. I think the DLC did. I think the combat system in the DLC is a good bit better. I just am not interested in the story the DLC is telling or the characters in the DLC.
Yeah, I remember thinking the combat in the DLC felt a lot faster and just snappier in general, and the concept there with the swapping the blades and the drivers was pretty interesting. But I do remember it took me a long time to fully grasp all the spinning plates you had to get going to get like the huge, ridiculous final elemental burst with all the button presses and everything. And it was just like the light came on, like, oh, okay. But it took me a long time to get there.
You can go pretty far in the game not knowing any of this.
Yep.
You will start to run into late game bosses that are basically just walls, unless you know some of this though. And that's what I ran into the first time.
Uh-huh.
You can grind, and grinding does work in this game because a lot of things are based on level, and the final boss is only level 70, and your level cap is 99.
I do remember having to grind to get past some of the bosses, yes.
This time I did not have to grind at all.
Nice.
Also, I've looked at the speedrun of this game. It's like 3 hours long.
That just blows my mind.
Yep, because they don't have to grind for any of the fights. They just have complete combat system mastery. So, yeah, just...
And that probably means they didn't even get any of the gacha blades. They just used all the story blades?
They used story blades and some of the DLC blades.
Huh. Oh, okay.
The dude who looks like the Sword Art Online character is exceedingly good, as is the Pyra fangirl.
Okay.
Of course, later in the game, you get, Pyra herself becomes ridiculous.
Yes.
But I'm okay with games that have this level of complexity, but they either need to do a better job of integrating it or
teaching
not
it.
require it, basically, for basic competency.
Mm-hmm.
The Pokemon games do ask you to dig into the complexity if you want to, say, climb the battle tower, at which point the NPCs take all of the gloves off. But usually they don't ask you to do that to, like, beat the game or even do most of the post-game content. And this one asks you to get pretty good just to beat the game. I mean, it is a Xeno series game. The end of the game is very surreal and stuff.
I mean, even Xenogears really wanted you to be very good at the game. And if you weren't and you walked into that final boss, you were going to get destroyed.
This game, I think, wants to destroy you before the final boss. They give you a particular combat where you do not have Pyra during the, I want to say, second to last chapter. That is a terrible, awful fight. It is less awful if you know how to seal certain things, if you know how that system works. It is very fast if you understand how to make chain attacks do dumb damage. But, like, just going in to basically try to fight the dude is very hard. Of course, one of the bosses I thought was hard, speedrunners knock into a freaking pit, so that's a thing too. Usually if I run into a game with this many systems, it's probably a 4X game of some sort.
Concerning.
I mean, those games also have a lot of systems, but most of them don't require you to dig into all of them at once.
Yeah, usually you can focus on a subset and do fine. I mean, that's one of the things I appreciate about Stellaris is if I want to play and I just don't want to deal with such and such system, there's probably a type of alien race I can play that just doesn't interact with it. I want to mess around with espionage and diplomacy? Fine. Don't really have to.
I think to put the situation directly into a Stellaris comparison, though, it's the equivalent of knowing that more pops get you more stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think think that game is very cool, and I liked it very much. And the complexity level it has drives me insane.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it did get me to hook up my Wii U and restart Xenoblade X, which is not better in that respect, but it's easier to at least fight things.
How does that game fit into the series?
It doesn't. Let's go with it doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's the safest from what I know anyways. It just doesn't.
Okay.
It's definitely alternate universe from Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2, which are very much not alternate universes of each other. They are linked in very important ways. And X is just kind of off on the side. It's this weird, it's more directly sci-fi since, you were on Earth and it got blown up and now you're not. Also, it is a Xenoblade game, so it's not being truthful to you, but we can pretend that. We can pretend that's the plot setup.
Also, you get a mech.
That's not really unique to Xenoblade X, though.
No, but it's a cool factor point for X.
Fair. It occurs to me that one of the other older games I'm delving back into is The World Ends With You, which is not better. It's also full of systems, but it's closer to Pokemon here. It doesn't require you to engage in a lot of them.
I think next thing on the list is we've talked about Psychonauts 1 last couple weeks a little bit. And Kodra, you played through Rhombus of Ruin?
Yes, I did. So Rhombus of Ruin is the VR Psychonauts game that exists between Psychonauts 1 and 2. And it's actually like the first VR experience I ever had. Or the first one that I sat down, not at like a trade booth. And it was really fun. I kind of see the appeal of VR playing this game. But the story is I think the story is pretty great, actually. I mentioned at the end of last show, Psychonauts 1 has definite issues with hey, we've come a long way when it comes to mental health. And this one definitely has a more interesting take. Whereas you are dealing with sort of the dark past of mental health is how I would look at it. And specifically one of the characters that was a villain in the first one. But as VR experiences go, it was really fun. And clever use of that form factor to tell a story that was still very Psychonauts-y. You eventually get access to all of your powers. You have telekinesis and Psyblast and pyrokinesis. You're using it to solve powers. You're using the basic premises. You're using clairvoyance to bounce around various people's heads so that you see the world from a different angle. You get to go on an adventure with all of the characters: Sasha 9, Mia Vidello, Lily, and Coach Oleander. It's very cleverly written. Yeah, if you get access to this game, I recommend checking it out, is what I would say.
Yeah, I'd really like to play it, but I just don't feel like I can justify the VR system.
Yeah,
just for
I know. That. This is also kind of my review of PSVR. PSVR, pretty great. It worked out. Once I figured out how to get the headset adjusted, it worked very well. I also give this game big props for being a game that you can play with a controller on your couch. Don't have to be standing up for a long play session. It's probably what made the 2.5 hour play session pretty easy to get through. I definitely recommend if you can playing it, because it really digs into some character story, and it's a cute little side story. Also, it's got a great theme song because it's very much leaning into Psychonauts as an organization is influenced by James Bond. So we're going to actually have a Bond style opening theme song for the Rhombus of Ruin.
Nice.
Which I loved. But yeah, now I'm going to play Psychonauts 2.
Right.
So this one confused the hell out of me. There's going to be a Disco Elysium television show?
Yeah, man. As long as they can find an actor who has the look.
I have no idea how they could possibly accurately capture the game but I am here to see them try.
Like, I always sort of got like, I don't understand why people call things unadaptable. Like, people call Dune unadaptable, people call Wizard of Earthsea unadaptable. I kind of feel like if you are taking Disco Elysium to a linear medium, I don't know how that adaptation works.
Yeah. Like I wonder if maybe what we're going to get is something like using the setting and concepts and all of that, and maybe like I feel like maybe if, instead of adapting the story of the game, they should adapt
The setting,
just the overall
the vibe,
feel
man.
of the vibe of the game.
You're a detective, and there are a constant like series of asides going on in your head.
Well,
No, make it a procedural.
yeah.
Yeah, just like a procedural, except for there's like 12 voices that also play in the back of this person's head.
It's
Like,
it's like Castle crossed with Herman's head.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Perfect.
But back to this. Maybe just don't make it about your character and Kim.
Yeah, I always feel like adaptable. There's a difference between adaptable and replicable.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe that's
There's a bunch of stuff that you can adapt to all kinds of different media. Like there are very few media properties that I would say you either can't or are so would be so difficult to do that you can't, that it's like that you wouldn't capture it. And you probably don't capture the whole.
Mhm.
Like Star Trek is a great example. Like you can capture parts of the Star Trek experience in a game, just probably not the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the 25th anniversary adventure game I felt like was a fantastic adaptation of Star Trek, like original series. Like it felt like Star Trek. I don't know if any of you have ever played it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You need DOSBox to play it now, but
Yeah, almost. I mean, yeah, almost certainly. It's from what, 92? 25th
something like
anniversary.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great 16-bit era graphics, but
Mhm.
I vaguely remember it going for the art style that was popular at the time, where nobody really has a recognizable face. They just kind of have colors.
But yeah, I found this one interesting. I would be much more interested in like a police procedural, like, or like possibly even I would even be okay with a continuation, maybe. Like if you really want to have Kim and your character in there. But like that story just has so like how you balance all of the various choices, like without being schizophrenic, or do you just tell the version of your character that is only trying to be a good cop?
No, like I don't think it's that show if you're trying to tell the story of only the good cop version.
I mean, there is a
Your
whole
character
path
is
where you're
highly dysfunctional, regardless of how well of how you assign your stats.
Oh yeah, even if you are trying to be a good cop, you are still very much a dysfunctional mess.
Yeah, you're fighting a lot of your like internal desires in doing that. But I mean that's part of the thing is like what if they are going to use the main character of the game, like what version of that character are they going to use? Because
Is it the communist? Is it the fascist?
yeah, like you can take him in so many different directions. Like you could just starting out, like depending on how you built him, but then over the course of the game, like there's so many choices that take you in so many different places. Like
I don't know, WandaVision. Like I absolutely see the first episode is played 3 times, but with different choices made.
I was going to ask if we were just going to go like the Rashomon route here. Tell the same story multiple times with some wildly different points of view, except they're all actually the same character anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Totally, yeah. That's completely my thought process.
Well, it almost has like a Groundhog Day vibe to it.
Yeah, like draw from like Memento, WandaVision.
So we're in the middle of this rapid release of games, and we're going to talk about a lot of them in the next few weeks, but Total Warhammer 3 came out.
I haven't gotten as much time as I would like with this one, but I love the Total War series, and I have a really hard time like describing them to anyone. Because if I try to say, hey, it's like Civ, but with like an actual interesting battle layer, and the battle layer is like kind of turn-based, but also real time, and people just look at me like I'm crazy. And so it's like it's difficult to describe this series because people look at a battlefield that has, hundreds or thousands of models rendered on it.
It's
and they're
very
like,
overwhelming if you're thinking you're controlling that much.
yeah, you're just like, oh nope, I looked at this and immediately noped out. I don't want to even think about this entire thing. But like, it's not as complicated as it looks, while still being surprisingly deep and complex.
I was gonna say when I briefly had that game, it felt pretty complicated.
Did you start as the dwarfs?
Well, I should clarify. I think the only time I've played it was Total War Shogun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, and one of the problems is that, so it was actually what I was going to get at with Warhammer is one of the biggest problems that Total War games have, I think, is that they give you no meaningful ingress. You're like immediately jumped into this very complicated thing, which I think does the game a disservice. Because you're like, hold on, I just started this game and I'm already looking at a battlefield with I don't know how many units and all of these people, and I click and stuff happens, but then I lose and I'm not sure why.
I thought I killed, like, all of those people fled and now they came back and killed my entire army.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this didn't explain any of, like, the systems weren't explained adequately for me to understand what I'm looking at. But what I think is really and what I think is really interesting about the Warhammer versions of those games is that starting with 2, they start you off in a way that is actually very approachable and is like, you slowly get more units, you understand the territory control and why territory control matters, and how to move your armies around the playing field, and hey, these kinds of things are good against these other kinds of things. And because it's all, mythic fantasy, crazy Games Workshop fantasy stuff, you're like, oh, right, that really big, slow troll is weak against all of my archers. Got it. That's intuitive. These guys that move really fast are really good against these slow moving, low armored ranged attackers. And so I think that the Warhammer series is just like tutorializes the game so much better. And they've had, so Total War games have had for years a co-op mode, which lets 2 people play co-op. And it's neat, but it's never, it's not like we play Stellaris with somewhere between 3 and 5 people. It's not really something that it's useful for us. But this one claims up to 8-player co-op. They do simultaneous turns, which makes things which is long overdue.
Say that's the part that why them limiting it to 2 people actually made kind of sense, because you couldn't take turns at the same time, couldn't do battles at the same time. More importantly,
you can do any battle that you don't auto resolve. You can have like units. You can sort of position a player as a like minor general in your force and just have them control a subset of units.
You could also make some players the opposing units, I believe.
Yeah, some players, if they want, can be the opposing units. This seems a little questionable in co-op, but
I mean, multiplayer doesn't have to mean co-op.
It's fair. But the like hour or so that I put into it I was like, oh yeah, they're doing a lot more to showcase like, hey, here are what basic units. Here's the like rock, paper, scissors structure of basic units. And then layered on top of that, here is your faction mechanics. And then also just hero units are cool. I'm very surprised.
I haven't played it, but didn't the Three Kingdoms one do a lot to make hero units interesting in that one?
Yes. Yeah. Three Kingdoms was fascinating because they took the larger than life Warhammer hero mechanics and put them in a place where it actually works. like, I'm not going to say historically speaking, but
The Romance of the Three Kingdoms is not exactly history, but it is
Yeah.
historical.
it's like mythic
history, like the
history.
Trojan War.
But
Right.
yeah,
But yeah, Total War Three Kingdoms did similar things, and it worked really well. Like, it's pretty neat in a game like this having that like one focal, impactful unit that you can customize and do various stuff with, and there's a really heavy chaos bent, and being able to have one of your factions be, chaos forces led by a demon prince that you slowly, or a demon lord that you're trying to become a demon prince that you can, upgrade in all of these different customizable ways is a neat mechanic. It sure is chaos heavy.
I mean, but weren't most of the parts of Chaos they added sort of missing from the previous releases?
Yes. Yeah, no, it's filling a pretty significant gap. But you've got your factions are basically the 4 chaos gods. I want to say Chaos Undivided, which is the demon prince led one, Ogre Kingdoms, which I guess is a pre-order
Finally.
thing. But yeah, Ogre Kingdoms, and then Kislev, which I'm guessing I think is humans but not empire. I don't actually know that one very
Old
well.
Warhammer had a
Northern.
bunch of different human factions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kislev
Oh,
is
yeah.
all the northern ones.
Yeah, that's the impression that I got. It's like northern humans and then Grand Cathay.
But no
Which-
Chaos
Which is
Dwarves?
humans, but Asian.
Yeah.
Chaos Dwarfs are not a thing, Belle.
They're absolutely a thing.
Yes,
I
they have
know.
amazing hats.
Chaos Dwarfs haven't been a thing that they care about reminding people exist in a long time, though.
Yeah, but it's a mistake, just like squats.
They put them in the box with the squats, and we're salty about it.
I mean, I suspect they'll get there eventually.
I'm not
I mean-
sure. I'm not sure they're going to make a 4th one of these.
I mean,
That said, they might just break the world and make an Age of Sigmar one.
yeah, they've got a lot of places they could go with this.
It's true.
Although the fact that all of the Total Warhammer games play together, as far as I understand it,
Mm-hmm.
is
They haven't yet put 3 in the mix, have they?
I'm not
Like
actually
they're still working
sure.
on that.
I think so. And that is wild. Like, being able to load up an entire world map thing is bonkers, because the actual full Total Warhammer map is enormous.
Yes.
To the point where you can be playing, like, if I'm playing Stellaris, eventually every corner of the galaxy is influenceable by me. That is not true in Total Warhammer. Even in like Civ, eventually the entire world is relevant to you. But like, you can have massive conflicts on the other side of the Total Warhammer map that are just like, I don't even care what's going on over there. That's not important to me. Depending on what faction you're playing, the amount of the world that you care about might not extend that far past your like little pocket. Wood Elves come to mind.
I was going to say, if you're not Wood Elves, you probably care at least a little bit about expanding.
Oh yeah, you do.
Wood Elves are their own thing, though. Yeah.
Yeah, Wood Elves are the, I don't want to say easy mode, but they definitely are. Do you want to play this game in a fairly focused, constrained way to understand everything that's going on? And they're very good at that.
Also, did you want to turtle up near your giant tree forever?
Yes. Yeah. Do you like to play the turtle game? But yeah, it's pretty neat. I'm really looking forward to, I mean, hopefully at some point, seeing what the multiplayer looks like now that it actually is supported. I just think that the Warhammer is such a great total war setting, because it takes some of the, like, it can be a little dry and boring unless you're really interested in the particular history or particular like portion of history that it's being set in. Like, I really liked the Shogun and Shogun 2. I cannot be bothered with Rome or any of the like similar. I thought Three Kingdoms was cool, but I'm not like that interested in the deep annals of mythic Chinese war history. Also, that game was really hard in a way I was not expecting.
If you are familiar with the Dynasty Warriors map, how you have enemies on every front constantly.
Yeah.
That's more of a problem in a Total War game.
Yeah, it is very it is a rough start, no matter where you start. And you know, the Warhammer version, it's a nice balance. But anyway, it's cool. I'm looking forward to putting more time into it eventually. And it's a little bit more constrained than the previous ones because it's not quite as many factions, so it's not as incredibly overwhelming. And hey, you can play as a dragon.
I think two started with 4 factions, which is actually kind of reasonable.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just that things grew from there.
Yes. They tend to expand quite a bit. And I honestly, you know, I think that's cool. Like they do some really interesting DLC, introducing new heroes and characters and stuff.
And it is it's the game that brought us the Doomsphere bot, one of the best Let's Plays on the internet.
What's this?
Someone endeavored to build a Skaven Undercity in every single settlement in the game and put a Doomsphere in them to destroy the settlement up and to set them off on the same turn. And that is what they did.
Oh my.
Incredible.
Their goal was not to conquer a single other city normally. So they were also showcasing range superiority Skaven were exercising at that particular patch cycle. Turns out not a whole lot beats Gatling guns.
Skaven are terrifying. Like, it is so easy. It is so, like, I remember playing one of the campaigns is High Elves versus Skaven and some other stuff, but mostly versus Skaven. And there are so many battles where either I roll in and I'm outnumbered like 7 or 8 to 1. I'm like, boy, I hope I can hold this out. Or I'm like, oh, I'm going to crush this, roll in, smash some targets, and then get torn apart by some other like, oh, they had some Gatling guns somewhere I didn't see, or like, what's this rolling thing? Now we're all dead.
I think the High Elf campaign was before they added Skaven as a playable faction, so I'm not sure things like Rattling guns and the Doom Wheel existed yet, but there was still a lot of Skaven, a lot of Skaven,
and like, oh, you broke this Skaven like group, they're gonna rally and come back probably 2 or 3 more times.
There's a lot of them. They run away real fast.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of them, so I'm gonna come back soon.
So I feel like the big game that came out this week is Elden Ring, the thing that everyone seems to be talking about.
I mean, sure seems to have taken over Twitch. Are you even allowed to stream if you're not streaming Elden Ring right now?
I don't know. And there's not even like a drop campaign or anything associated with it.
Yeah, I know I've been playing a decent amount of Elden Ring. I believe, have you, Bell?
I've played a little bit. It is very much not my game. Like,
yeah.
Dark Souls games are not my game. I have given it a shot. I will continue to poke at it, but yeah, no, it is very much a Dark Souls game.
I feel like there's a commentary on the game and then a meta commentary on the conversation around the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I feel like I want to have that discussion about this reportedly being the highest reviewed game in a really long time.
Yeah.
And to me, that doesn't actually mean it's really the highest reviewed game, just that it was reviewed by a bunch of Dark Souls fans.
I feel like the subsection of people who are reviewing games and the subsection of people who are Dark Souls fans is disproportionately aligned.
Yes. Yeah, because, I mean, if you look over on Steam, it's got a 61% approval rating.
I sure would not want...
That might have more to do with the performance PC port.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but performance on PC is a relevant thing to talk about in a review.
So like, that is key. I have a really nice PC. I have an 11th gen i7. I have a fast M.2 drive. I have a 3080, and it freezes all the friggin' time for me, disproportionately when I'm about to be in a fight. And like, I don't know, that should be more than enough hardware for the game.
So I have less specs than you, and I was having this problem, and then I closed Chrome, and I stopped having this problem. Like, which is not to say that's not like a problem. One of the things that I've discovered since playing Star Citizen is games are starting to tax these systems a little bit more now.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to go back to, oh, I'm playing a game. I shouldn't be doing anything else on this machine.
There are 2 games that I have played recently that so I have some ridiculous case lighting on my computer because it's apparently unavoidable now. And currently it's configured so that the CPU has a light and the RAM has a light, and the light changes color based on how hard those components are being taxed. I have seen 2 games that hammer my RAM, and it's Elden Ring and Star Citizen.
Yep.
I have 64 gigabytes of RAM.
Wow.
I have had no performance issues with Elden Ring, but I am watching 64 gigabytes of RAM going, hey, this is more than we were expecting. So I have no idea. Like, I have no idea what's going on.
I will give them credit though. This is probably the first Dark Souls game from Software that is at all reasonable to play on mouse and keyboard.
Is it though?
I mean, it's pretty good. Like it is completely fine on mouse and keyboard.
It's true.
I mean, it's not kludgy like the other ones are. Like it
Fair.
feels fluid. Probably you want to play it with a controller because reasons, but
I think that there is an issue, and I don't know if this is just I don't know if this happens on controller as well. There is an issue if I am trying to move in one direction and look in a different direction with the camera. If I like the camera will pan away, like I'm strafing to the left, the camera will pan to the left, and I have to sort of like tug it back. And that's about the only control jankiness I have run into. At least control jankiness that exists on mouse and keyboard that probably wouldn't exist on controller, let's say, because this is still a From Software game.
Yeah, and like I was having this frustration. Like a lot of the commentary I've seen is this is the most accessible Dark Souls or From Software game ever, and I'm like, okay, yes, that
With a
is
low bar to
all
clear.
technically true, but it's not like you have perfectly solved your accessibility problems.
I mean, I still don't feel like it's a very accessible game.
There are a bunch of things you can do to make the game more accessible. You have to figure them out a lot of times. Like, it helps a lot to be able to just summon a bunch of wolves into a fight. That makes a lot of fights easier.
It helps a lot if you start with a bow.
Oh,
in addition to your sword. But then you have to craft a bunch of arrows.
Yeah, I think the bow's a trap, actually.
How so?
I mean, it's perfectly fine for whittling stuff down before it gets to you.
Yeah, you kind of just hinted at why I think it's a bit of a trap. You whittle it down, and the arrows are a pretty expensive resource.
Yeah, I mean, they're not cheap to craft at the beginning.
Especially when we are comparing it to the other range system, magic.
Magic is and has always been the easiest way to go through these games. So, if you're having a hard time with a Souls-like game, consider playing the magic class.
I know both Tam, I believe, started as the primary magic class. I believe both of us have converged on the hybrid magic swords class, which is very fun.
Yeah, I mean, they actually made a hybrid melee spellcaster that isn't garbage. To my genuine surprise, that of all of the places where this could be made functional, it's this game that actually pulls it off.
Did they give you a sword that scales off intelligence? Because that was a thing in a lot of the previous games.
Yeah.
To make the caster and also melee good.
I have not found one of those yet, but that is true. The other games do have that. It's just the other games, it's really hard to get people who are interested in that stuff far enough along to get them because they are mostly mid-game items.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this game starts you competent. Like
I feel like the kits that they give you are way better than any other Souls game has given.
It's true.
Yeah.
Some of the other Souls games have had some very good kits and some very bad kits.
Yeah. I think that I don't think it's that arguable that this is the most accessible Souls game, but I also, as mentioned, I think that's
not
a pretty
saying
low.
a lot.
Yeah, it's not saying a lot. What I think is saying a lot, like I think a bunch of people have looked at this game and said, like, okay, so I kind of bounced off of Dark Souls. I didn't really like Bloodborne, Sekiro, etc. What is there anything about this game that would make me feel differently about it when I've been like interested in but turned off by these other games? And the answer is kinda. Um it Souls games are to me marked by two things that kind of set them apart. It's basic enemies are meaningful, both because they can kill you and also because they actually give you usable resources. No matter at what point you're playing in the game, like they are constantly useful, even in very small amounts. And bosses are about figuring out the pattern and then executing against the pattern. They are the closest analog are like FF14 bosses, where if you pull an FF14 boss not knowing what you're getting into, you're going to die in like 2 seconds and have no idea why. But as you start to get used to the kinds of things that they do, you'll be able to say, oh, okay, yes, this and this and this are happening. It's going to chain these 3 things together. And then there will be an opening where I can, hit the boss or drop my Black Mage spell speed ring or whatever the case may be.
The other thing is, if you are ever, and I think you mentioned, if you're ever stuck at a boss, you can just leave. There's a whole open world.
And that's what I was getting. That was where I was going, was because in previous Souls games, it's like, okay, I found my way to the first boss. The first boss is trashing me. There's nothing I can do until I can grind my face against the first boss enough to beat it, because there's nowhere else for me to go. I'm going to make a bunch of Souls fans mad. They're linear games. They are games where you can make some choices about how you approach their linearity, but they're pretty linear, especially on a first playthrough.
Yep.
This is not. Like, this is aggressively not. And it helps. Honestly, it helps a lot if I'm like, okay, I've thrown myself against this boss 3 or 4 times. I don't really have to fight it. I can go do something else. I can wander somewhere else. I can amass some more power. I can amass some more tools, go do a different, get better stats, maybe find a new weapon, whatever the case may be. And also it has better tiers of challenging encounters, because I think that a lot of Souls games had like basic enemies, mid bosses, and bosses. And those were basically your 3 striations of enemy. Whereas there's like sort of a constant stream of low level, pretty easy enemies. And then there's like enemies that are easy, but not trivial. And then you've got stuff that's like, hey, this is legitimately able to kill you, but it's got a pretty easy pattern to recognize, or you can engage it in a certain way that makes it not so challenging, or whatever the case may be. And then there's like actual mid bosses where, hey, these are hard and they have patterns. And then actual bosses where, hey, you went through a gate and now you're in a boss arena with a boss that has a name and a health bar, and
there are even levels of those difficulties.
Yeah.
Because I've been playing for like I have not yet beat the first quote unquote story boss. A boss you need to beat and I'm going to very, very generously say you need to beat to progress the story, because there's probably a skip. Let's be honest. They'll figure it out.
I've already found the skip.
But like,
it's an evil skip, but it is a skip.
But there is a boss who comes out and like has a cinematic conversation with you and then is very, very hard. And I got that boss down to like a sliver of health, and like I literally felt the like air leave my lungs. Like when it killed me, I was like, I was so close. Like all of my morale has been shattered. And then I was like, wait, I can just go. I can leave and come back later and fight this boss when I'm feeling up to it again.
Yeah, which is a big problem that I have had with previous things by them. I mean, Sekiro was a big example of this, where like I did eventually beat Sekiro, but there were several parts where I fought a boss. It's just a morale shattering defeat, and the only thing I have to do is go back and fight that boss. Whereas being able to be like, no, I'm going to do something else. I don't need to do this right now, or maybe ever. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to wander around this like admittedly gorgeous world and find whatever weird, whatever bizarre thing is around the corner. And there's plenty of bizarre stuff that is at least interesting.
I am going to randomly be wandering through the woods, kill a low-level enemy only for it to disappear and a 30-foot tall bear come and kill me.
Yeah, this game has some sweepers.
I think
you're
I've
wandering
now
around minding your
identified-
business, and then that's a thing.
Well, it starts the game like the first enemy you see is a sweeper. Like the first thing you see is a big golden knight on top a horse, and you can the game is going to teach you don't have to fight everything. You can go around that one, and then you can come back and try and fight it against once you've gotten some power, and then it kills you again, but not quite as quickly. I got that boss down to 10%. And I still haven't beat it, but I'll keep coming back to it because I'm gonna keep trying.
Honestly, like the thing where I think the game falls down is one of those like, yes, it is technically better, but if this were a game where I could properly form a party and explore this world with some friends, I would be slavering to get people to play this together.
We should at least give it a shot to see how the co-op works. But yeah, I know it's not perfect.
The co-op implementation is insulting.
Is it different than the summon sign system of games past?
It is slightly more accessible than the summon sign system of games past.
That wasn't a yes.
That. Because honestly, if you had a class, and I don't actually know if there is a heal people with magic class.
There is not.
There
Wait,
is.
really?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is. But like, go in there with warrior, mage, cleric, thief, bow, like sneaky bow user. There's a bunch of stuff that I'd be like, okay, yes, I will. Like, we can use team tactics. We can do these things, and it would work, and it would be really fun, because then you're getting that like you are working together with other people in a hostile PvE world feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost there, but I have to jump through whatever stupid hoops to actually do that. And I don't
the problem I have is that you don't get credit for killing a boss if you kill it in a friend's world.
Ooh,
right.
Yuck.
Yeah, no, it's gross.
You cannot get loot from chests. You can get loot from drops, but not from chests.
Right. Just like I said, it's insulting.
That's why I asked. It sounds like it works pretty much the same way as it worked before.
Well,
Yep.
The one thing I will say is before, in order to do this, you had to spend a humanity or a ember. This you do not have to spend anything that outrageous. You have to spend a crafted item that you can very easily, like, I think I have, let me see, like probably 30 of them already, and they respawn. And even then, there's somebody who sells these items for like 50 souls, 50 runes. So it's really easy to get the item you need to summon other players. That is where I would say it's better. It's not costing you your most rare resource, which is literally a non-renewable resource. It is a renewable thing that you can PvE in this game cooperatively. And you can even PvE in the overworld cooperatively. It's not just at boss fights that you can do this. But yes, I do agree, like, this game could have actually just made PvE co-op much better.
Like, it's a solid 7.5 out of 10.
Yup.
And like many 7.5 out of 10 games
I
that
would
fall into that range, it has some absolute brilliance marred by some really, really dumb design decisions.
And I think the thing that goes back to the reviewer statement is, like, the people that reviewed this game are already bought into the bullshit. Like, they are dyed-in-the-wool Dark Souls players who have accepted certain things about that game series. And compared to, the previous games, this is a step forward. Like, it's an incremental step forward, but like what I was hoping was this would be the Monster Hunter world of the Dark Souls series,
Yes.
where it takes a terribly obtuse game and at least puts some scaffolding that makes it accessible. And like, it's really not that. Like, it's a step towards that, but it's really not that.
Yeah, like Monster Hunter World took an incredibly opaque, inaccessible, unapproachable game and made it into something that was at least more approachable and like still pretty opaque, but more approachable and a lot of fun because it made it easier to get into. Whereas this is not intentionally doing that at the same level.
And to be perfectly fair, and like to stem off some of the rage that I'm sure we'll get for that statement, I don't think they wanted to do that. Like, I don't think Elden Ring was trying to be a more accessible Dark Souls. I think it was just trying to be a more open world Dark Souls.
Yeah. Again, it's very hard to like judge, to read these reviews where it's like everyone is like, I didn't see anyone give it less than a 90 and be like, okay, but like problems here, right? Like, this game is extremely polarizing. Why are the reviews not?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and
Like-
that highlights a problem with game review right now. So the ideal case is back in the day of the various review magazines where they would actually have multiple players of different, tastes review a game. But like,
Is
there's
this
not
the
enough time. This is the EGM thing. Like, but there's not, well, I think GamePro used to do it too. But like, there's not enough time to get 3 reviewers to play for 100 hours. Like, there's too many games. Like, there is no time to have that level of review. But also, like, I know how this went down. Like, the review copy came in to each of the outlets, and the biggest Dark Souls fan lobbied for getting access to that key so they could play the holiest of holies early. And the reviews we got are a result of people who really love Dark Souls. And that's awesome, but it's also not a great metric to determine whether or not you're going to like it.
Yeah. And like I've seen a bunch of comments. It's like, oh, it must feel bad to be Horizon and get dunked on by Elden Ring. I think Horizon's doing okay. Horizon Zero
Really
Dawn.
great game.
Horizon Zero Dawn, a PlayStation exclusive, has 2/3 of the total sales of the entire Dark Souls franchise on every platform. Yeah, it's doing just fine. Not that you would know it by reading reviews.
Yeah.
Which is a problem.
Yes. This is a problem of game reviews. Like, I am a big fan of Dark Souls games. I love this game, but I think I would probably review this game at like, oh, it's probably like an 88. Does this game solve all, like, this game is the best version of Dark Souls, but it doesn't solve all of my nitpicks with Dark Souls. But I still love it. I'm still going to enjoy playing it.
Yeah, like,
and I'm a very favorable Dark Souls reviewer, but like, I am not favorable enough that I would be somebody who would get to review Dark Souls.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the challenge. Like, if being a quote unquote fanboy of a franchise is your credentials for reviewing it, then we got some problems.
I think there's also the fact that Dark Souls is a game that is attractive to the people who just generally review games.
Well, the people who are still around reviewing games, the people who haven't been driven out of games review over, the past 15 or so years.
I think there's also, like, Dark Souls feels nostalgic for, like, when we were young and bad at games.
I thought you were going to say people
that.
actually remember Kingsfield.
Like, do you want to feel young in a world that is full of mystery, that is going to beat you down because you're not actually good enough at it, like you did when you were a kid playing, like, basically any game?
Ghosts
Dark Souls will simulate that experience for you.
So the funny thing about that is, like, I had a conversation with someone, and it wasn't about Dark Souls, but it was about, JRPGs, specifically some of the more obtuse PlayStation era ones. And like, when I was younger, I was way more willing to suffer through obtuse mechanics.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I would fiddle with it until I figured it out. But like now, I've got other shit to play. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to feel frustrated while I game.
Well, and I have less time in general than I did when I was, in college. Like, I could grind my face against something for, pretty much all of my free time in a week.
Forever.
Yeah. And that's not something I don't want to do that anymore. And even if I did, I can't. There are limits.
I just don't feel like I have anything to prove anymore.
That too.
I love video games. I don't claim to be a good gamer.
Yeah. Look, I beat the 8-bit Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game.
For
God,
the
that was
NES.
so painful. That was so
Yes,
painful.
nothing else will ever be harder than that.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a whole bunch of those 8-bit era games that I also suffered through, but like, I would never do it again.
God, no.
Was it Milon's Secret Castle or whatever? That was kind of an obtuse game.
Oh yeah, yeah. There were a lot of really
basically-
obtuse puzzle games because the translations, the localizations tended to be mediocre at best, so that didn't help.
That carried into the PlayStation era.
Yeah.
I mostly missed the 8 and 16-bit era of really obtuse games. I think the most obtuse game that I got decent ways in was Illusion of Gaia, aka Illusion of Time, depending on where in the world you are. The quote-unquote sequel to a game that most people that I never played, Soul Blazer.
I still think about I still periodically think about the game that made me become a game designer indirectly, which was Lagoon on the SNES.
Dude, I loved Lagoon at the time.
Wow.
Well,
and it was a horrible game. Like,
It's a
I
horrible
admit,
game.
it's a horrible game.
like the thing about Lagoon was that was a game that I played, and it dawned on me that this game was bad and it wasn't my fault.
So the thing with Lagoon is, I had finished Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, and I wanted another game that was similar to that. And like, back then, when you plunked down $60-$70 on a game, like, that was the one you were gonna have for a while. So I suffered through Lagoon just because, like, it was the game I bought, and
See,
I'm gonna figure it out.
This is why I rented my Super Nintendo games. I think I only ever actually bought like 2 Super Nintendo games because by then the local video store had a massive game rental section, and I would happily just go through that.
It was real scant in my small town of like 2,000 people for a really long time, and then finally one of the stores started to get some Super Nintendo games in.
Yeah, and again, I was a teenager, so I had masses of free time, so I could rent Final Fantasy IV and beat it during the rental period.
Yeah, I rented Final Fantasy 3, aka 6, and got about halfway through and decided, oh god, I really want this game. And, went on a pilgrimage to try and find a copy because, like, it was sold out everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then restarted it from scratch because obviously there's no way to carry your save over.
Nope.
But what's weird, though, is about that era is that there's some games that I'm super nostalgic about that I don't think anybody thinks are good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really loved the Willow Nintendo game.
Oh yeah,
I loved that thing. It was
Played the hell out
great.
of that.
I mean,
Yeah,
people tell me all the time Legend of Dragoon is bad, but I don't care.
Legend of Dragoon was so great. Like,
I mean, I think Ash has mentioned this in the past. Like, there's a lot of games that aren't great that are personal favorites.
I was going to say the 7.5 out of 10 games, which kind of made me laugh when you mentioned Elden Ring, are people's favorites sometimes.
Yeah,
Kind of frequently, actually.
I'm gonna be honest, it was a precision chosen number because I think that the Soul series is a solid 7.5 series and is consistently a solid 7.5 series that happens to be filling a niche that is not filled elsewhere for the most part.
it's a critical darling.
Because it is full of flaws, but it is doing a thing that isn't really done elsewhere. P.S. This is why I think that Jedi Fallen Order is the best Souls game, because it smooths out all of the things that all of the problems, or most of the problems that Souls games have, into a approachable package while retaining the difficulty if you want that.
If you don't, you just turn that part off.
And then you can play it. You can approach this game and enjoy it.
Yeah, you've got this really fun Jedi romp. It's great.
More people should play Hyper Light Drifter.
Ooh, Hyper Light Drifter is also good. But yeah, like that's the thing is a lot of things have been now influenced by the Souls series or influenced by the things from Castlevanias that the Souls series was influenced by.
Yup.
And I think another aspect of this is Dark Souls games are really popular on Twitch because people like watching somebody suffer through something.
I mean, like, not gonna lie, I'm not gonna say it was the highlight of my week for a couple of reasons, but coming in at a solid number 3 or number 4 on my week was listening to Kodra get ambushed by the ninja bear.
The ninja bear, oh my goodness. It was terrifying the first time. It's literally, it is a ninja bear. There is like ninja smoke bomb, like a smoke effect, and then a bear that is comically oversized, which because of how it spawns in, probably pushes your character model like off a cliff.
Oh, wow.
Yes. It's a short cliff. You're still alive, and now it's time to run. Because the bear follows you at speed trying to kill you. It actually got attack with me where it like brought me to its chest and just like started clawing at me before slamming me into the ground.
It sounds like one heck of a bear hug.
It was like this game is very, very weird in many ways. Like I feel like all Souls games have had a bit of like dark humor, but I feel like it really is shining through. And like, I mean, the other joke, like you have a horse that you can summon and ride around on, and you can jump in this game, which you could jump in other games, but we're gonna ignore that because the jump was so bad and so unintuitive that everyone hated it. You can actually just press A to jump in this game. Your horse can double jump.
On PC, your jump is F. It's the most awkward thing ever.
What?
Listen, it's still a Dark Souls PC
Didn't we
port.
just say you should play this game with a controller?
You should play this game with a controller. You really should.
I'm doing just fine on mouse and keyboard. I did some key rebinding. I did have to figure out how to invert Y, which involved me going into a Dark Souls in Discord and being called a few slurs, trying to figure out how to invert.
I thought it asked me
asking a
straight
basic
up.
tech question. What?
Yes, and that inverts your controller Y.
Yeah, I thought it asked you. Oh, it only inverts controller. It doesn't invert mouse.
Yep.
There's
Correct.
another section to invert mouse Y.
It's a different part of the menu.
Yes.
The annoying thing is even if you only have a keyboard, it's gonna feed you prompts for controllers until you tell it to stop doing that.
No, you can also switch that in that same a different part of that same menu.
I found that. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. I want to see the controller inputs.
Okay, I kind of want to go through this because like there's a whole bunch of stuff that makes this game way more accessible, but it's so obtuse and impenetrable that it's like, hey, you should probably go like before you don't fight this knight you see, go around it, you'll find a cathedral. That's your second bonfire, your site of grace, and there is a person who sells you a crafting kit which unlocks the crafting subsystem, but you actually have to like talk to him and purchase this crafting kit. If you ask him for recommendations, he will tell you to buy the crafting kit, but like that is a lot of work to unlock a pretty core mechanic of this game.
Right.
Like, do you want to be able to swap out your weapons, ashes of your weapon skills? That's another thing. It's down in a basement inside of the occupied village next to the third checkpoint. Like, you can just completely miss that.
Hey, they added a thing that is probably the most helpful, accessible mechanic, although sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and I don't know why.
Is this
I have
the
absolutely
summoning?
no idea why, but you can summon things to fight alongside you, and they're really good. but you can miss it because you've got to
There's-
go backward to the starting little cathedral to get the item that lets you do it.
I have to say some words about the UI of the game, because there's like a school of UI design that is shared by From Games and by like Capcom's Monster Hunter games and Dragon's Dogma, where it's like the most obtuse UI you could possibly have.
In what way?
Oh my
I
God.
just it's just a bad design.
Like, I guess how? Because
If I want to go back in a menu on mouse and keyboard,
I
I
have
mean,
to
yes,
right-click
there's
and
that,
say
but like
back.
most of the, I guess I don't quite get it because those games don't strike me as having terribly similar UI.
Like the UI
it
mostly
feels like it's really hard for me to figure out how to do anything on the first go. Like, it took me forever to figure out
Oh.
how to dual wield a weapon.
Yeah, okay.
Like, there's it's just in how to equip things in a specific hand, and
It's
how to-
unintuitive.
yeah, it's just unintuitive. Like,
or
they're both unintuitive.
Equipment and
it is
inventory.
based on it's either super unintuitive or it is based on it is several steps down an intuition path that is divergent from nearly every other video game.
Yeah, the fact, I will agree, like this is a core Dark Souls complaint, but like the fact that there is an equipment and an inventory section, and you cannot equip items that you are looking at in your inventory is very
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yep. It's little things like that. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like how Final Fantasy 11 is menu hell. It's like an outmoded style of moving through a UI.
Yeah, or
Yep.
like, hey, I have on foot, I have a sword in one hand and a staff in the other hand. I don't use my offhand when I'm on the horse, but I would like to be able to switch between sword and staff.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot. That is just, you can't. Unless I got a second staff and put it in my as an option in my right hand.
Yep.
And so it's like, why did nobody think that this would be something somebody would want to do, or is needing to fiddle with my equipment in a menu frequently something that is considered a gameplay benefit in some way? Like, is it a bad decision?
Is it supposed
or
to
an
be part of
oversight?
the? Is
I
it
think it's
supposed
meant
to
to
be
be
part
part
of
of
the
the challenge.
decision? like this is the experience. You know, you can't just like double click on something to equip it. That's
Yeah,
easy
well,
mode.
and that's kind of the thing, is there's a bunch of stuff like that where I'm like, I don't know if this is a good if this is a decision or an oversight. I had not considered that the game as a whole is nostalgic, is basically nostalgia for being younger and bad at video games.
Yeah, but that makes a lot of sense.
I
And
would,
it absolutely makes a lot of sense.
Because I remember grinding my face against super ghouls and ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
Basically
Wizardry.
the same thing.
And the controls, and
I mean,
you
a
know,
lot
the
of those
controls
are-
there weren't good either.
the thing about a lot of video games at that point was they were based on arcade games that were designed to take your money,
Yep.
which is why I go back and forth about the different good and bad scrolling
Well,
shooters.
I mean, to be fair, like that's also the EverQuest thing. EverQuest was originally designed to be a per hour model, so everything was designed to eat up time, because it was based off of Island of Kesmai, which was an hourly Genie Network thing that you like paid per the minute of playing that game. You know, so I'm not surprised that like a lot of these things were awkward and time consuming and painful because they were quarter munchers. But what's weird though is like a lot of the people that are nostalgic for EverQuest are nostalgic about these universally bad designs that were designed to eat up your time and waste it, not value your time. But because the original game was that way, now it's a nostalgia.
Yeah, but as we've talked about before, some amount of friction is useful to drive people together.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if this game was about being driven together, like if this game had better co-op, it would be very, very good. I still am going to want to play the co-op in this game because I think it will be very fun, even if it's not necessarily something where like I am getting progress. I still think I will do it because it is fun. And that's like it's got it is still a fun game. Like, playing this game is fun, even if it, like, the level of difficulty is frustrating. Like, boy, do I love using this katana, especially when I'm two-handing it and I can use unsheath, which basically allows it to function like Aido.
Yeah, like the moment to moment, when the moment to moment is hitting at or below where you're challenged, the game is great. Like, it's really, really fun rolling around on horseback and blasting through a bunch of enemies. And like, yeah, they're weak enemies, but they're not a waste of your time because you still get resources for killing them. Taking down a more challenging enemy is really satisfying. Finding a chest and opening it and getting something cool is pretty great. And I do think that that's probably the biggest breakthrough that this game has, is that you can progress through it at your own pace, not the pace that the game dictates.
Yeah, if you want to just run around and farm up materials for arrows, you can do that. Like, that's a thing.
And it's got really cool looking bosses that eventually one day I might want to try and beat. I just found a dragon. I then turned the other way because I don't want to fight a dragon.
Was it
Sounds
an
like a good
ambush
choice.
dragon?
It ambushed somebody else in a very far off distance, which gave me enough time to turn and run. Very kind of them to have them show me the dragon killing some other group of people, not just me.
They like to do that with dragons.
It's
Dark Souls
true.
1 did that too.
Yeah.
Well, Demon Souls also gave you a cinematic of the dragon before you even got close to it.
Yeah, the Demon Souls Dragon Bridge. I remember that.
Did I confuse that with Dark Souls? Yeah, I was thinking of the Dragon Bridge.
Yeah. I don't remember what game it is, but there's also one where you take a lift down and then there's a dragon all of a sudden. Yeah, I mean, basically, I think like kind of the takeaway is that it's a good game. I just like be careful of the hype that it is generating. Know yourself. Like, if you are not a fan of Dark Souls games in general, maybe pass on this one. Maybe don't get caught up in the zeitgeist. This is not going to be the game that magically makes Dark Souls better for you. Like, if you liked Dark Souls but wanted it to be slightly different, then yeah, this is absolutely a great game. I think you'll dig it. I think core Dark Souls fans will really enjoy it. I think those who were on the fence, just sort of enjoying Dark Souls games, will also enjoy it. I've just seen a lot of Twitter getting caught up in the hype, playing the game, realizing it's a Dark Souls game, and then refunding it on Steam, which is probably bad. Anyway, any final thoughts about anything we talked about tonight?
I'm playing The World Ends With You in Crosscode, so it's not like I have any thoughts about current games.
I'm still completely engaged with Horizon Forbidden West.
Yeah,
And when I'm not playing that, I'm
Yes.
playing Dying Light 2.
I rolled credits on Horizon Forbidden West. That's an easy Game of the Year candidate. The question really is, what are the other two games that are going to make it this year? Which is a heck of a thing to say in February. And ask me about Toby Eye Tracker sometime.
I will get to Horizon Forbidden West eventually, but for now there are dragons.
Not for long.
But not for long.
I hear it's the end of them.
I'm told there will be an end of dragons.
2 days. Well, I guess one day by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
Yep. It will be tomorrow when this releases.
Because I'm pretty sure we're already under 48 hours at this point. So, yeah.
Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
See you.